Imran, fantastic to see you here on The Real Deal, and I'm very grateful indeed, as will be our viewers, as we'll soon see when the text messages begin to light up, that you have squeezed us in a very busy schedule. I'll be asking you later in the interview just exactly how things are going to develop politically in Pakistan, but I'd like to, for the benefit of our many viewers who know you as a great cricketer but won't know the details of your life in the way that our Pakistani viewers definitely will. You are, of course, a proud Pathan. I'd like you to tell us what that means, but you grew up in the Punjab, and you were educated not only at Oxford, as I said, but at Aitchison College, which is, of course, a very fine school, left, I think, by the British Raj in your country. What was the childhood of Imran Khan like?
Well, George, the childhood was Aitchison College, which was just next to my house.
A good school?
Very good. Very privileged to be in a school like that because it had excellent education and then great sports facilities. So, you know, for someone like me who had a passion for sport and came from a sporting family, two of my first cousins captained Pakistan. So it's the only time in cricket history where three sisters' sons captained the country, and all of us ended up in Oxford or Cambridge. So I was privileged, went to a quality school, had good education, had, you know, great facilities to play cricket. My basic childhood memories are this, really. Zaman Park, where I grew up with my family, my cousins, so very sporty, and then Aitchison College. And then I ended up, I was still in school when I ended up.
Did you play cricket from the earliest age, as a small boy?
Well, yes, I did, and especially because of my cousins who became my role models. You know, they were older than me, and so I wanted to emulate them. Everyone, of course, said that they were much more talented than me, and I could never become like them. But they became they blazed the trail, so as to speak, for me. And I wanted to follow their footsteps. So I was doing my A-levels, and my first year I got selected for Pakistan team. I ended up coming on a tour to England. After the tour, my mother only allowed me to go on tour if she said I finished my education. So I finished my education, did my A-levels after the tour, went to Oxford University, and then played cricket throughout.
What was Oxford like in those days?
Well, I think, again, very privileged, because here was a quality institution where I could study. At the same time, I had, quality cricket, because Oxford played first-class cricket then.
And you captained the team, didn't you?
That's right. In my second year, I captained the team.
What did you study, as a matter of fact?
Politics and economics.
Ah, well, that's quite helpful for your later career.
Well, politics, because, I feel that if a man is part of the human community, he has to be political. I mean, Aristotle once made this famous comment that if there is injustice in the society, every citizen will go to politics except two types: the selfish, materialist and the selfish, and the timid, who are scared to take on the vested interests.
Well, timid, you certainly are not, and we'll come to that. But it's interesting. You came from such a privileged background, and you achieved such great things as a young man. You could have lived a sybaritic life of pleasure, touring the world and relaxing and being relaxed, but you chose to not to refine Islam, because you never were not a Muslim, but you rededicated yourself, it might be said, to Islam, and you went back amongst the people and began this political life. Was there a road to Damascus moment, or had this been growing for some time in your mind?
Well, you see, when we people who grow up in Eastern societies, we grow up with spirituality. You know, when I came, at age 18, when I came to the West, to England for the first time, the two things that impressed me most here were the democracy, rule of law, independent judiciary, and second was a welfare state, a state that looked after its underprivileged. I think that was the thing that impressed me most. What I found absent here was spirituality. In Pakistan, these two things were absent there. State which was fed off the people, a parasitical state. The elite sponged off the poor, subsidized the rich. No concept of a welfare state. Although the first ever welfare state in the history of mankind was the first Islamic state in Medina. That was the first time, pensions and sort of the state looked after its weak. I thought was the greatest thing about our society was that people, common people, everyone, understood and believed in a higher concept of God and the hereafter. And they lived their lives completely different to the way we lived in cities and what I saw in the West. So I think I was never really not spiritual. There was always lurking behind, but I did not understand it until the death of my mother. I was, I think, about 33 or 32. She died of cancer. And that became a turning point in me because, I was so close to her and it was such a painful death she had that, in a way it changed. It was a slow change of course. Firstly, I decided to build a cancer hospital in Pakistan.
Which is the biggest, isn't it? The biggest cancer hospital?
It's the only specialist cancer hospital in the country, but most importantly, 70% are treated free in a private cancer hospital, which doesn't happen anywhere in the world. But what changed my life was this thing, you ask this question, some people never do, some do it early, but I did it at that time, that what is the purpose of my existence and where am I going after I die? These two questions, the answers to these do not lie in science. They only lie in spirituality. So then started this quest, which ended up sort of me understanding, developing this deep faith and understanding, what I'm doing, my purpose of existence. And so the spiritual way of life is different to the materialist way of life in the way that in a spiritual way of life, you feel that the more God gives you, the more of a responsibility He puts on you to do for the society. And so that's where really the change took place.
Here's from Jamil in Slough. Why does Pakistan cricket always, well, we'll not use the B word, why does it always underachieve? Does it always underachieve? You were the world champions. You were the captain when you were the first time you won the world championship.
Well,
does it underachieve?
It does underachieve considering the amount of talent there is in Pakistan. And it underachieves the same reason as the country underachieves. It underachieves because we do not have institutions. So cricket is not an institution in Pakistan, and because it's not an institution, you cannot tap and polish the talent.
Ken in Sutton, who was Imran's greatest ever cricketer in your lifetime? You've got to exclude yourself because you're a modest man.
No, I thought...
You were in the same breath as Garfield Sobers, Ian Botham. You were the great all-rounders.
Well,
would it be one of those or someone else?
The two greatest players during my time, there were a lot of great players, but two greatest in terms of batting was Viv Richards. He was way above everyone else. And in bowling, I thought the most talented and natural fast bowler was Michael Holding. Although there was Dennis Lilly and there was Malcolm Marshall, there were great bowlers, but he, was just above all of us.
Yeah. Now going back to the as it were, the change, because it's no secret, you did for a very brief time as a young man enjoy some of the things in the West, but you appear to have undergone a profound change at the time of your mother's death, and I think there are many, many millions in Pakistan who are very grateful that that change happened, because you have emerged now as one of the very few clean figures in Pakistani politics. Now, the cynic might say, well, you were never in power, so you were never, as it were, tested. But do you think that your faith, your deep faith, is driving your political campaign, your political battle to change your country? It's interesting you chose the name Justice for your party. You weren't this party, this, that, you were the movement for justice.
Well, look, George, what happens is that once you understand your purpose of your existence, and I think that once all of us have a reason for existence. All of us have a destiny. And it's a question of knowing that destiny. Most people end up sort of looking after themselves. And unfortunately, the ugly side of this materialistic culture, which is all prevailing now, the ugly side is that you only look after yourself. And basically, that is the road to unhappiness. Happiness means being ability to give and to understand your direction in life. So I discovered that I knew I was the most privileged person. God had given me everything. I mean, everything I wanted, He'd given me more than that. So I thought that, I